Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News. It's Monday, September 15th, 10:30 a.m. And this story comes to us via a post on X from one Peter Bernegger. Peter Bernegger. And his story, which is what we're going to follow through on, states that U.S. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries has been caught criminally laundering a stunning $18.2 million into his campaigns. He is smurfing money into his campaign, and then he explains that smurfing is structured money laundering and preys on elderly senior citizens in particular, stealing their identities. And then he has a link to a page that has the financial information on it. And good story. Once again, the issue is caught by who? Caught by law enforcement? Doesn't seem to be. Should it be? Probably should if it's true, right? He covers all this type of financial thing. If you're interested in that type of financial thing, then go to his X column, which is Peter Bernegger, Peter Bernegger. And that's the whole story with that, except that, when you're talking like that, yeah, sounds incredible. Sounds like we should be down with that. But once again, it's what you know you can prove. Okay, so that's where we're going with this. This is not a whatever. We're not here to hound on Mr. Bernegger. It's a good catch. We sent him same thing, texted, good catch. Glad somebody's out there caring. Now, whether or not Jeffries is going to get in trouble will be a different story. So this story is, though, raising some eyebrows in Washington. Unfortunately, obviously, nobody in the Inspector General's office. The allegation again, Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader and one of the most powerful Democrats in America, may have benefited from something called smurfing in his campaign committees. Now, let's be clear, okay? There have been no formal charges against Jeffries, which doesn't mean that there can't be some forthcoming. But the patterns in his fundraising reports are unusual enough that, it screams red flag all over the place. And some people are finally asking tough questions. And we'll just go through this right here. So, what is smurfing for those of you who don't know? In the world of money laundering, smurfing means breaking up large sums of money into many smaller transactions. So banks and regulators don't know it. It's structuring. It's designed to avoid thresholds that trigger reporting requirements. Remember, they used to tell you $10,000 or more would raise a flag. I would say you'd probably be better off going much less than that. Uh, Apply this to campaign finance. The term is used by some watchdog groups, and I think one of the better cases of this was James O'Keefe when he was going to the people's houses and knocking on the doors and asking them that they had contributed 75 times a day to ACT UP or whoever it was. And this is a term that is used to describe massive clusters of small dollar donations, often made under the same or similar donor names. These donations may be legitimate grassroots contributions. There are a few that are, that type of thing. Or they may be a way to launder money into campaigns by disguising big sums as thousands of little gifts. My thing with this, when you saw the O'Keefe video and everything else, is they're making these donations of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's being kept track of somewhere. The people that own the houses that he went to didn't look like they had hundreds of thousands of dollars. Shouldn't that have raised a flag over at the IRS that there was a large amount of money moving out under this person's name that didn't have a way of coming into their pocket in the first place? I don't know, but that's the beauty of the IRS, right? So here's what's being flagged over there. Jeffries operates two committees, Jeffries for Congress and the Jeffries Victory Fund. According to data collected by researchers, the Victory Fund logged nearly 13.5 million in flagged transactions. So the ones we're talking about here through Mr. Bernegger. All right, representing over a fifth of all of his contributions. Meanwhile, Jeffries for Congress allegedly showed over 113,000 transactions labeled Smurfed. This is in a different report, but they're telling you what they think it is, totaling about $4.7 million. Now, those are massive figures. If they're accurate, that would mean thousands of transactions don't look like normal grassroots donations. When you see a family of three making 75 to 100 donations a day of $25 at a time, you wonder what that family of three is up to. Or if it's one woman who's 80 years old, who, as you remember the O'Keefe video, she was rather old, and they talked, I think, to the son or something. So, do you know your mother's made over $200,000 worth of donations? The guy just looked shocked, but he must have known something because he didn't say, well, I got to call the police right now and get on this. Nobody calls the police, right? So, yeah, they're probably in on it. There must be some compensation in those larger things for some of them, unless it's a dead person, which we also have issues with that, with dead people donating money. The source of this data that we're discussing here is a site called Smurf Search. So you can look that up yourself, Smurf Search, which comes through FEC filings looking for anomalies. Their criteria aren't official FEC categories, but they do highlight patterns. Everything, well, the more successful people are looking for is patterns in the deposits, patterns in the amounts of money when they come in. Repeated donations for the same donor, unusual zip codes, and contributions that come in rapid succession, like the woman who donated 25 times in a day, right? But the important part is these anomalies do not prove criminal activity. They definitely make it suspicious, but it does not prove criminal activity. The Federal Election Commission does not classify donations as smurfed. What Smurf Search is doing is applying its own filters to spot unusual patterns. Some of these patterns could have innocent explanations. Just have to say this. Elderly donors using automated small dollar giving. I myself have made accidental purchases on websites because I clicked the button too many times. So I understand where they're coming from. Data entry errors on addresses and zip codes. Platforms like ActBlue processing donations in ways that create unusual clusters. But other explanations can be more troubling, which is what Bernegger is talking about, which is identity theft, where names of unsuspecting citizens are used without consent, donor bundling or laundering, you heard all about that, where large sums are chopped into micro donations. The point is, without deeper investigation, that means subpoenas, bank records, testimony from donors themselves, we will not know if this is a true statement or not, regardless of how true we feel it to be, unless the follow-up goes through, which has just been stated. It's just supposition. So why does this matter? It is a major problem now because if thousands of micro donations are fake, stolen, or structured, then campaign finance law is being undermined on a massive scale, which we know it is to be. And if it's happening in Jeffries committees, it could be happening across the political spectrum, which Sanders, Cruz, Jordan, AOC, anyone who raises big money through grassroots platforms. All right. This isn't about one politician or one party. It's about whether our system of campaign finance is being gamed in ways that voters can't see. And really, the kicker is every anomaly like this chips away at public trust. If voters believe campaigns are laundering money, or worse, are exploiting senior citizens' identity or the identity of deceased persons, the entire process looks corrupt. It's all vote Tammany from the old days. And this is whether or not any of the allegations are true. So what should happen here, other than, like I said, Bernegger has called this out. What should happen here? First, the journalists and watchdogs need to keep pulling the raw FEC data, not just summaries, and cross-checking it against public records. That's only being done by a handful of people like this fellow. All right. Second, donors should be contacted if their names are on the list and say, hey, I never made these donations. That's good. Get them to sign something and you move forward. Third, the FEC and the Justice Department need to decide whether these patterns rise to a level of formal inquiry, knowing the past history, especially of the Democratic Party. Pam Bondi, if I have to keep saying this, should be doing her job and having a separate task force that does this. Okay? That's why you appoint different people to do different things. It's how Rudy Giuliani got famous, right? So, third, the FEC and the Justice Department need to decide whether these patterns rise to the level of formal inquiry. Okay, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. It has to move forward. This can all be handled, like I said, through a task force or through a special prosecutor. At the very least, these reports should push campaign and fundraising platforms like ActBlue to tighten verification. ActBlue is it's probably the single largest rule breaker out there because they are loaded up with Soros money and whatever other degenerate he's involved in. So Americans are going to have to be able to trust that every donation is real and legal. We already have the problem where corporations are people, but they're not, but they can vote, pretty much. So to wrap this thing up, the Jeffries Smurfing story isn't a conviction, and we don't even see any evidence that a formal investigation is being done. You do have a journalist or investigative reporter who is giving you some very good facts, but it's still a red flag. Now, history will tell you that the big scandals often start with just a red flag, that patterns don't add up, numbers and that look too strange. You can't ignore them. So whether this turns out to be a systematic platform issue or we'll just say lopsided reporting, which I don't believe, or something darker, it deserves a closer look. So basically, that's it. And once again, good work out there, Peter Bernegger, and the rest of you who are doing the right thing with trying to keep any kind of track of these dark and twisty tunnels that is the campaign finance in the United States. So that's about all. Have a good day. Goodbye.